Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
This is a section that often gets flooded, and you can see it's flooded here. Earlier this morning, there was a car that was stuck in there.
Flooding prompts a state of emergency in Pemberton. People in several properties have been ordered to leave. Plus,
we're blocking the doors off with sandbags so the water doesn't go in the house. But it's been rising all morning.
To the south, people in Squamish are also facing flooding again. And 5 hockey players have now been charged with sexual assault related to an alleged group incident in 2018 when they were on Canada's World Junior team.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Flooding has forced the village of Pemberton to declare a local state of emergency. Several properties in that community, about 30 kilometers north of Whistler, have been ordered to evacuate, while many others are on alert. Our Zara Premji joins us now with more. Zara, what's happening in Pemberton right now?
Well, Dan, the main intersection is flooded, and there is flooding on the banks of the Lillooet River as well. The state of emergency was declared around noon after heavy rain and warm temperatures caused the creeks and the rivers to rise. Now, the evacuation order has been issued for 6 properties along Airport Road. It includes some homes, a golf course, and adventure tourism companies connected to the airport. People in the area are being urged to leave toward the Sea to Sky Highway. The village says there is an immediate danger to life safety for the affected properties. About 20 other properties are on evacuation alert as several waterways are swelling with melting snow. The village says properties at risk are along the Lillooet, Ryan, Miller, Green, and Birkenhead Rivers, Pemberton Creek, and Lillooet Lake. Pemberton's mayor says they're watching the weather forecast every hour.
Our staff is assessing whether or not we need to look at any other evacuation alerts in the area. If need be, we will issue those alerts and make sure people get out safely in time.
Zara, what's expected for Pemberton in the next 2 days or so?
Well, Environment Canada says Pemberton got between 30 to 50 millimeters of rain overnight. And BC's River Forecast Centre says flows at a flood gauge near Pemberton were at levels seen only once in 5 to 10 years. A pizza shop owner in the area says some people are now scrambling.
We had people with livestock who have to get their livestock out of their properties and bring out the goats and all their horses and cows and bring them up to high ground, leave their chickens to fend for themselves. We've had people from the local run-of-river power company interjects. They have what's called chocolate milk coming down from the mountains, and all their intakes are all blocked. So they have to deal with that.
Now, the local state of emergency is expected to remain in place for 2 weeks until February 13th at midnight, unless otherwise advised. Pemberton is just one region hit hard by storms and rising water levels. Well, I spent the day in Squamish and nearby Brackendale, where they too are bracing for what Mother Nature is bringing again.
We're blocking the doors off with sandbags so the water doesn't go in the house. But it's been rising all morning. It's kind of been a losing battle.
Hundreds of millimeters of rain from last Friday left a mess for Brackendale residents like Don Robson's family to clean up. And now they're bracing themselves for the next set of storms, bringing a possible replay of last weekend.
So the river's so high, we just got to wait till the river goes down, or hopefully it doesn't come any higher.
These storms, a sort of deja vu for some, stirring flashbacks of last year's damage in some parts of Squamish.
King tide came through last December, flooded the basement. Last year it was a pretty bad situation where we were actually shut for a couple days, and some pretty major damage downstairs where there's lots of very valuable liquid.
But this time, sandbag preparations have taken place well in advance.
They've been here all winter long. Like, we started having these thoughts in November. We sort of splayed them out.
But they admit there's only so much you can do when Mother Nature is involved.
With rivers already quite high, there's not a lot of room to absorb that extra runoff. And so we could see that ongoing risk for flooding persisting tomorrow and into Thursday as we go through this next system.
Potential for flooding is nothing we want. This should be a part of sort of April or May for that changing of the seasons. We want winter as bad as everybody else right now.
And Dan, now that next set of storms is already setting in as we speak. Expected to hit hard tonight and into tomorrow, with damage carrying into Thursday and really beyond.
Zara Premji reporting for us tonight. Thanks very much. Science and climate specialist Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the weather. And what can we expect next, Darius?
Oh, lots more rain to come, and unfortunately, Pemberton is one of those places that we'll be seeing quite a bit because this next atmospheric river is expected to hit most of the island, particularly south of really anywhere below here and further down. We're expecting to see plenty of rainfall, and including that passing over those mountains on the island and into places like Howe Sound and all along the sea to sky and then up into those mountains. So we are expecting quite a bit of rain, including here in Pemberton. So just in case anybody didn't know, it's just northeast of Whistler. So if we zoom back out again, we can see just how much rain they are expecting to get over the next few days. And so we're expecting anywhere from 40 to 60 millimeters more rain over the next 72 hours coming to Pemberton and surrounding areas. But also, as you can sort of see here, get an idea of how we're going to start to transition from more rain to more snow at higher elevations. You can see that blue and pink slowly start to spread over the next few days as those freezing levels slowly start to creep back up. So plenty more rain on the way. And again, we have that Lillooet River that's really overflowing its banks right now, largely because those freezing levels are so high. We're seeing so much of that rain dragging down all that water that has been locked away. What little water we have had locked away in our snowpack so far this year, because it has been very slow going, starting to fall off. And so a little bit of good news in the days ahead. We're going to see those freezing levels start to come back down. So we're around here right now on Tuesday. In the days ahead, they start to come down a little bit slower than we might have expected previously, but slowly we will start to see that. So a bit of improvement there. But for the local mountains, we're not seeing too much improvement. We have had nothing but rain. This is satellite and radar we're looking at, plenty of rain passing over those mountains in the last few days. And unfortunately, not much change there expected in the next few days. We won't see freezing levels drop below the top of those local mountains, at least until this weekend, probably into early next week. And that's bad news because right now we're expecting, or Cyprus has just announced they're going to be closed entirely in terms of skiing for tomorrow for Grouse and Seymour, operating at extremely minimal levels with most runs closed. So hopefully see the return of some snow as we get into the beginning of February and things trend a little bit cooler and a little bit drier.
Okay, Darius, we'll check in later. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The avalanche risk remains high in some parts of BC as heavy rain and these unseasonably warm temperatures linger. One expert is urging extra caution if you plan to head into the backcountry.
Use the resources like Avalanche Canada, reference BC Adventure Smart's webinars, learn a little bit more about where you want to go so that you can reach your destination, and your destination is home.
Avalanche Canada says that even for experienced outdoors people, it is nearly impossible to determine when weak layers in the snowpack will slide. It urges all backcountry users to ensure they have the survival essentials, pick a good group to venture out with, and stay out of avalanche terrain where the risks are high. More than 7,000 BC Hydro customers in the BC central interior and northeast were without electricity this morning, Prince George being hit the hardest. BC Hydro blamed the outages on high winds, saying gusts reached nearly 60 kilometers an hour last night, causing downed power poles and fallen trees. While the outages are being fixed, Environment Canada is forecasting storms that could bring more outages and more flooding to parts of Vancouver Island and the South Coast later this week. A Pacific Junior Hockey League goalie was forced to take a leave of game last week due to a severe injury that appears to have been inflicted by a player on the opposing team. A warning for you, this video is disturbing. Goaltender Evan Paul was playing his second game for the North Vancouver Wolfpack last Thursday when a brawl erupted near the end of the third against the Richmond Sockeyes. Video of the fight shows Richmond defenseman Ethan Grisham with his right arm around Paul's neck for close to 20 seconds. When he finally lets go, Paul slumps to the ice, as you can see, motionless. A statement from Paul's team says he suffered a severe injury and is recovering at home. CBC News contacted the Pacific Junior Hockey League and Hockey BC, but has not heard back yet. Health Minister Adrian Dix, though, did weigh in earlier today.
Criminal code applies to everybody. It applies if you're on the ice. It applies if you're outside of here. It applies to everybody. And criminal actions need to be taken care of by criminal processes.
The Richmond Sockeyes declined to comment, citing a hearing that has not been announced publicly. Ethan Grisham was previously suspended for 16 games earlier in the year for incidents in 2 separate games. 5 former Canadian World Junior Hockey players from 2018 are now charged with sexual assault. They're NHLers Dylan Dubé of the Calgary Flames, Cal Foote and Michael McLeod of the New Jersey Devils, Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers, and former NHLer Alex Formenton, who was playing in Switzerland. The players' lawyers confirmed the charges. Lawyers for Dubé, Foote, and McLeod issued statements stating the players are innocent. All 5 are currently on leave from their teams. The charges stem from an alleged group sexual assault of a woman in a London, Ontario hotel room nearly 5 years ago. BC's struggling southern resident killer whale population has suffered another loss. The Centre for Whale Research says it believes the youngest member of J-Pod has died. All members of the pod were accounted for in a recent photo survey, except J60. Given his young age, it's extremely unlikely he was safely off on his own. The centre says the mortality rate for young southern resident calves is very high due to poor nutrition and the transfer of toxins from mother to calf. Southern residents feed on Chinook, and local populations of the salmon have been dwindling. WorkSafe BC is looking into a crane collapse at a construction site in Surrey today. It fell down at 7 in the morning during a safety check at a site near 105th Avenue and King George Boulevard. Well, no one was injured, thankfully. WorkSafe has issued a stop use order on the crane and a stop work order in the area. It comes after a crane buckled in Burnaby last week, raising questions about the effectiveness of crane operating training.
Fines and orders only work so much. Mandatory training at least gives the people that work around these crews the knowledge that, you know, that the people that are there have the baseline knowledge to perform this work safely.
Towley says while events like these do not happen often, the risk of death when they do means a much higher safety bar is pivotal. The Trans Mountain pipeline expansion is facing construction delays again. Trans Mountain Corporation says it discovered technical issues in the Fraser Valley last week and needs more time to determine the safest and most prudent actions for minimizing further delay. It had said it expected the pipeline to be in service near the end of the first quarter of 2024. That's now been extended to the second quarter of this year. A Vancouver lawyer has resigned her license. It comes after she filed a lawsuit against a neighbor the courts have called frivolous and vexatious. Leanne Young spoke with reporter Bethany Lindsay about the story.
So this lawyer, Naomi Arbabi, she was upset because one of her neighbors in a Fairview condo building had installed a glass privacy divider on her deck. It was actually the condo strata that installed it. And so she filed a lawsuit against the neighbor, accusing her of trespass. But it was written in a very unusual way. She said that it would not be tried on any sort of actual written legal statutes. It would be based on the law of the land. She identified herself as I, a woman, Naomi Arbabi, all lowercase.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and
not standard legal kind of talk, right?
Exactly.
And she's actually a licensed lawyer, though.
Well, she was a licensed lawyer, but her neighbor took this to a judge and said, look, I think that this is actually a pseudo-legal lawsuit, the kind of thing that sovereign citizens and free men on the land and people like that file. And the judge came out with a decision earlier this month that said, yes, this bears many of the hallmarks of what's known as an organized pseudo-legal commercial argument. So that's used by these sovereign citizens and stuff like that. She gave examples like saying, Naomi Arbabi had said that this would be tried in the Naomi Arbabi court with her own rules that she had set up.
Interesting. And so she didn't get back to you for any interviews, but she did post something on her social media page. What did she say there?
Yeah, so yesterday she posted on social media to say, basically, I believe this stuff so strongly and I understand it so deeply that sometimes I don't realize how crazy it might sound to other people.
Okay, very interesting story. Thank you for that, Bethany. If you want to know more, you can head over to our website and read Bethany's story. Thanks for that.
Bethany Lindsay speaking with Leanne Young earlier in the day. 6 months ago, even the most die-hard fan may not have believed it. But the Vancouver Canucks, who finished 6th in their division last year and failed to make the playoffs, are tied for first place with the Boston Bruins in the NHL. Good place to be, but as one hockey analyst says, the trade deadline is fast approaching, and the Canucks need to lock in the team that will give them the best shot at the Stanley Cup.
Looking pretty good on all fronts. You also don't want to mess with the chemistry too much either. But I wouldn't be surprised if they made a small move, a minor addition during the trade deadline.
Jake Gensel of the Pittsburgh Penguins is one name that's been tossed around as a potential forward. CN says the Canucks could use an extra defenseman alongside Captain Quinn Hughes as well. He has one of the best defensive records in the league. The trade deadline is March 8th. Deciding where to invest your money while staying environmentally conscious can be tough. After the break, we'll have an expert with us and some tips on using your money while staying green. Stick around. And thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. A local art foundation has once again held a vote to choose the Chinese character that best represents 2023. CBC Radio's On the Coast host Amy Bell sat down with a longtime Richmond City Councillor and the Art Foundation chair to discuss this year's results.
Last year, a local art foundation held a vote. It asked Canadians which written Chinese character they felt best described 2022. And the character that received the most votes was inflation. This year, the foundation held the vote again, asking people for the character they felt best sums up 2023. And for more on what members of the community picked this year, we are joined by Chak Ao. So you've got the votes counted. What was the character that Canadians feel best represents 2023?
Well, this year they picked the word rent as the Chinese character of the year for 2023.
And that seems very fitting. It's on a lot of people's minds. What was the second place vote this year? I'm curious.
The second place role is interest. So actually, I think that those two characters are related. I think the high interest and the high rent or high cost of housing are related.
About this character, how does it get its specific meaning?
Yes, and actually in Chinese, we got the characters being constructed in different parts. So the word or the character for rent is actually composed of two parts. The left-hand side, which is wo in Mandarin, means grain or products. And then on the right-hand side is another part which means giving. So what it means when combined together is that you pay part of your grants or part of your gains to give it to either your government or to the landlord as a rent. So that's how the Chinese character is constructed.
Tis the time of year many Canadians consider upping their contribution to a TFSA or an RRSP. A lot of factors can impact how much you might give, from salary changes to big upcoming expenses. In recent years, more people, though, are adding environmental impact to that list. So how can you invest, grow your money, and be climate conscious? Well, George Benson is a sustainable finance expert and a member of the BC Climate Solutions Council, and he is with us now. George, thanks for coming in. Pleasure. Where should someone start if they want to be greener but also want to grow their money?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. think the first thing to say right away is that when we're talking about sustainability in finance, we're not just talking about a nice to have, we're talking about an essential. 70% of the global economy has committed to a net zero target by 2050. 40% of all global asset managers have made some sort of net zero commitment. So this is the water we swim in now, so to speak. And so in terms of the really actionable things that people can do, I really have 3 simple rules. The first is do no harm. Take a look at the institutions that you're banking with, that you're investing with, and ask the question, are these people actually walking the talk? There's great things out there like the Banking on Climate Chaos Index. There's the Science-Based Targets Initiative. You can look through there and find a good spot, just at the high level, who's doing the right stuff. The second one is to look for the leaders. Those same indices will tell you the places where you can put your money at a high level, and there's specific assets and resources like the fossil fuel free funds.ca. You can check in there and see what are the specific investment instruments that are available to you as a retail investor that you can check out. The last thing is to invest in yourself. We really think a lot about climate change as like, how is this big bank going to divest, or what's the big scary thing I need to do? But in reality, if you're looking to put your money somewhere where it can help the planet and yourself, look at your home, look at your vehicle, a little bit of insulation, going from an internal combustion vehicle to even a hybrid. Those are all very tangible improvements that can give you money in your pocket right away.
Still, though, for some people, cost is a factor. So how do you work that out?
Cost is always going to be a factor, and I think one of the key things we always need to do is take a long-term view. So yes, we look at something like a heat pump, for example. That's a big wad of cash that you got to put out right away. Now, we are very lucky to live in a province here in BC where there's a lot of incentives. You have utilities, cities, and the province all weighing in. You can be looking at as much as $25,000 in incentives to put in there, and yet still, that's not enough for some people. But if you're thinking about the resale of your home, you're thinking about the need for heating and cooling in your house, sometimes that can pencil a little bit better for you. But even then, going step down and saying, have I checked my windows and doors? Have I done my insulation? Again, internal combustion to a hybrid instead of an EV. Those are all really manageable steps for a lot of folks that don't seem as big and scary as the big cost.
And lastly, we appreciate your time. When it comes to investing back to the RSP or TFSA, will you make the same amount of money going more green, if we can call it that, than you would have before?
Absolutely. In almost every case, that's been true. And as we get into the climate risks that are facing the financial sector, places that are less exposed to fossil fuels, more invested in solutions, you're going to be walking out ahead.
Great. George Benson, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
A massive security breach at Global Affairs Canada has government employees worried. Who and what was affected after a month-long leak? That's next.
It's on our way to the finish line. Got a hard road ahead.
I'm not quite sure what's going on here.
This is our first year that we've been in Fan Park, and we're here this year because we were hosting the World Championships.
I'm going to go up this ice wall, apparently. Now, Carla's given me great instruction. Whether I can follow great instruction is another question.
It's actually a nice structure for anyone to come down and use. We're open 7 days a week.
So this one I'm reaching too far, right? I don't want to go that far?
No, that's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody out there who wants to climb it can come climb it here while they're getting ready for the World Championships. I'm pretty sure the pros will be a little bit better than me.
So then pick up your right foot.
Okay.
Take it out and re-kick, yeah. We have the boots, harnesses, crampons, ice axes, helmets. Everything's provided for you. We have qualified instructors here to teach you the movement skills you need to get on, and we have people that would teach you how to belay. The weekend of February 16th through 19th, which is the Family Day weekend, we have the UIAA World Ice Climbing Championships. So it's the first time they've been held in North America in like 22 years, so it's pretty cool.
Whoa.
We have 100 to 150 athletes coming from all over the world, and actually just finished the World Cup in Korea. And once that's wrapped up, all the top athletes will be heading this way. Oh, it's phenomenal. I'm super excited about having it here in the Ice District. I mean, seriously, how cool is that going to look when that structure's finished and having athletes climbing on it and this place packed full of people? So during that weekend, there'll be a festival as well. So there'll be live music, we'll have food, entertainment, there's going to be a VIP area.
Oh.
Now it gets way easier once you know how to do it. But everyone who starts off like this.
Oh, that is so hard. Hard to do, but good instructing, Carla. Loved it. So come out and try it, everybody.
CBC News has learned that Global Affairs Canada was hit by a massive security breach. It affects at least 2 internal drives, as well as emails, calendars, and contacts of many staff members. Kate McKenna has more on who and what is affected.
CBC News obtained this internal email sent to staff. It says the government detected malicious cyber activity last week and that many Global Affairs Canada users may have been affected. The attack compromised the system that lets people work remotely. It includes shared drives and personal information.
Of course, we're very much concerned with this.
Sources tell CBC News it's possible secret information was taken.
When it comes to the information that was potentially compromised, if you're looking at emails, calendars, list of contacts, that's if you're looking at it from an intelligence perspective, that is a treasure trove of information.
The government is working to fix the system and answer a big question. Who is behind this breach and why?
Immediately, a country like Russia or China comes to mind. And one of the challenges behind these kinds of data hacks or breaches is you want to be able to identify the perpetrator as quickly as possible. Partly to give you clues about the nature of the hack itself to help you repair the system, but also to decide on what you're going to do about it.
Kate McKenna reporting. Some Canadians may have to change where they get specialty drugs after a new deal between insurance giant Manulife and pharmacy owner Loblaw. As Nisha Patel explains, it's raising questions about competition.
Kiro Mase prides himself on running an independent pharmacy.
It's the embodiment of what I want healthcare to be. I would like it to be more personalized.
He worries new agreements in the pharmacare sector will erode those standards.
We're slowly moving towards the American model, where it's all going to be just high-volume pill factories.
Patients who are insured by Manulife and need specialty drugs used to be able to get them from either Bayshore Healthcare or Loblaw-owned pharmacies. For many now, Loblaw is their only option. Manulife says specialty drugs represent less than 1% of prescription claims in Canada. They're expensive and are used to treat illnesses like cancer, osteoporosis, and hepatitis C.
Manulife has identified that they're basically able to get a better deal by just going to a single provider.
That keeps costs down for the insurer, though it raises concerns about choice for patients who live in rural or remote areas.
They may go to their pharmacy that they regularly go to and find out that they have to switch pharmacies or go somewhere else.
Manulife says the move will offer greater convenience. Loblaw says patients shouldn't notice a difference, and they can pick up prescriptions or have them delivered to their home. Arrangements like these that offer a preferred pharmacy have become more common in Canada, though rules ban them in Quebec. Some experts suggest they limit competition if smaller pharmacies feel squeezed.
If they're left out of being able to sign these larger deals, how does this affect their business model? And how does it make it viable for them to remain open?
You're going to have probably 2 big players in the pharmacy field, okay? And they're going to control the entire market, and then they're going to call the shots.
He and others wonder if deals like these will be a slippery slope. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Automaker Toyota has issued a do not drive advisory on 3 of its older models. The advisory covers some 2003 and 2004 model year Corollas, Corolla Matrix, and 2004-2005 RAV4s with Takata airbag inflators. It affects about 7,300 cars in Canada. Owners are being asked to contact a Toyota dealership and get repairs immediately. Being warned the airbag inflator could explode and potentially kill motorists. An internationally brokered proposal for a ceasefire in the war in Gaza is now in the hands of Hamas. It includes a 45-day pause in fighting and a major exchange of Israeli hostages held by Hamas and Palestinians detained by Israel. While Hamas is going over the plan, Israeli officials have already rejected key parts of it. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied reports of a ceasefire deal to end the war. He also reiterated his vow to achieve absolute victory over Hamas. His defense minister is reported to have said Israel intends to retain military control of Gaza and run it the same way it has the occupied West Bank. A far-right member of Netanyahu's ruling coalition has threatened to bring down the government over a deal. Hamas says it wants the full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a deal that leads to a long-term peace. The federal government has announced a new $40 million aid package for Gaza, but the money will not be going to the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees, known as UNRWA. Ottawa has suspended contributions to the agency following Israeli allegations that some UNRWA workers took part in the October 7th attacks. Rafi Boudjikanian has the latest on the funding freeze and the fallout within the Liberal caucus.
Of course, because when we found out about the serious allegations from UNRWA itself and the UN body, we did the responsible thing.
Some clarity on Tuesday from the federal government on exactly what that means. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency is not part of a new $40 million aid package for humanitarian assistance to Gaza. The money instead going to UNICEF, the World Food Programme, and others.
A pause is a pause. A pause on additional funding.
In November, UNRWA was part of a previous aid package valued at $60 million. Ottawa was slated to dole out $100 million over years, starting this spring, money that for now won't be going forward.
UNRWA is doing a very important work.
At least one Liberal MP wants their government to reverse the freeze. Salma Zahid says she met with UNRWA workers on a recent trip to East Jerusalem and the West Bank.
UNRWA, I think, is doing a very important job because they are providing shelter to thousands and people in their schools. They are making sure, so they need the resources.
This former aid worker says UNRWA does have its issues.
UNRWA is flawed. It's a flawed institution. It may not be the institution for the day after or for the future.
Indeed, the UN says it is still investigating after Israeli authorities turned over evidence some staff at UNRWA were involved in the October 7 attack. But finding an alternative could be difficult, Dave Harden says.
And it has 13,000 employees. They represent probably 95% of the infrastructure that is responding to the crisis that we have in front of us. None of the American or international NGOs have that kind of capability. I mean, most of the NGOs have 25 or 50 people on the ground.
Meanwhile, the government admits the move to suspend Canadian funding is causing debate in its own caucus.
This goes to shows to the diversity for our caucus that we have these difficult conversations, and it is between those difficult conversations that we find a path forward to ensure that we're supporting Canadians.
For now, the government says it could end the freeze pending the results of the investigation. That means money could start flowing again later this spring. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A raid by Israeli commandos on a hospital in the occupied West Bank has sparked outrage. 3 men were killed. Israel says they were militants, but as Chris Brown tells us, the action is fueling fears that the conflict in Gaza is spreading.
Security camera footage from Jenin's Ibn Sina hospital shows Israeli commandos with automatic weapons disguised as hospital staff and patients. While some stood guard in the hallway, others entered a room and reportedly shot dead, execution-style, 3 Palestinian militants, leaving a bloody scene behind. Even by the violent standards of this conflict, this raid was exceptional for the location where it happened and its brazen nature. One of those killed was Walid Jalamna's son, Mohammed. You might be surprised that a hospital is being raided, but this enemy, this occupier, hasn't left anything for us to be surprised by, he said. Hamas claimed one of the men is a member and the other 2 were claimed by another militant group, Islamic Jihad. Israel's military said the 3 were preparing an imminent attack inspired by the acts of October the 7th, but provided no evidence, stating for a long time wanted suspects have been hiding in hospitals and using them as a base for planning terrorist activities and carrying out terror attacks. We asked the hospital's director about the IDF's claims. Was there any evidence of that you saw?
We hear about that, but actually, as I told you, one of them is paralyzed. He is complete bedridden.
Al-Shobaki said the man suffered a spinal injury in October and has been immobilized ever since. While Gaza has been the primary battleground in Israel's war against Hamas, the West Bank has seen intensifying violence. Raids by Israeli forces have destroyed roads and buildings, and almost 370 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli military or settlers since October the 7th. This Ramallah-based political analyst says the intensity of the violence is unprecedented.
Most of these victims concentrate in the north of West Bank. These areas is being punished because their role before the war. They were resisting the occupation all the time.
The International Red Cross says it is concerned about the raid. It says under humanitarian law, hospitals and patients must be respected and protected. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
She's racking up the medals, but her ultimate win is just showing up at the pool every day. We're going to speak with a 99-year-old swimming champion from BC next.
Shadi Rezazadeh wants more doctors like her, so she put her money where her mouth is.
If you add them up, it's something around 70,000 per doctor.
Rezazadeh is putting up her own money. She planned to recruit one doctor to her True Care clinic on McPhillips, but thanks to the incentives she's offering, Rezazadeh is bringing over 10 doctors from the United Kingdom who already have the credentials to practice in Canada. They'll work at True Care and the reopened River Grove Medical Clinic on North Main Street. It'll cost her $700,000.
I feel good about it, but I'm drowning financially.
A year ago, Rezazadeh found her recruitment efforts were often futile.
I also had to offer some incentive for them to kind of choose me over 10 other clinics.
So she raised the stakes, a free one-way flight to Winnipeg for the new doctor and their family, a signing bonus of more than $17,000, and for their first month, Rezazadeh pays for their housing and a rental car.
We have a buyer market, seller market. Right now it's a doctor's market.
This just shows perhaps maybe some desperation of some of the members.
Doctors Manitoba isn't surprised at the lengths some private clinic owners are taking.
We need to do better in Doctors Manitoba. The government needs to do better. The public, the system needs to do better.
The health minister will meet with Rezazadeh this week.
I'm very eager to learn about her innovative approach to recruiting doctors to her practice, but to also understand how we can better support her and doctors like her.
The doctors Rezazadeh recruits are signing 3-year contracts. She hopes to recoup her costs with part of the doctor's earnings and set up her patients with the care they need in the long term. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
She's 99 years old and a dynamo in the pool. Her big wins have been turning heads internationally, but BC's Betty Brussel is staying humble and hungry. Arthi Thayaparan has more on what motivates her to compete.
Betty Brussel never intended to take part in swimming competitions.
I was never that serious. I go for it, but if I don't win, it's okay too. But somehow or other, I did win quite often.
And at 99, Brussel is doing more than just winning. On January 20th at the Canadian Masters Championship in Victoria, she broke several world records in her age category.
Most of my records I didn't know I was going for it. I'd come out and they say, you broke a record. I never really, she made like Linda, my coach, she made me last week to do, to think about it, but for the rest, I never even think about it. So I just go and do as well as I can.
While she competes in various styles and distances, the 400-meter freestyle is her favorite. She says the construction of a municipal swimming pool in the small town of Grand Forks changed the course of her life forever. She was just 68 when she started swimming competitively.
After I retired, I started to swim. Then I met up with people from the senior games, and I started to swim with them, and I just got better and better, every year a little bit better.
Now living in New Westminster, Russell swims laps twice a week at a Surrey pool.
I go to the pool here and swim. That's my training. I have never really trained. I just swim. I just feel good about swimming. I just love to swim. I love the feeling of being in the water, gliding through the water. You have no weight in the pool.
While she's a bit shy of all the recent attention, Russell hopes her achievements can encourage others to be active.
I really honestly don't feel special. Very often when I come in the pool on a meet, people come up to me and they say, I thought I was too old to start, or I think I'm going to quit, I'm getting old, and then look at me and they say, well, you can do it if you want to.
She adds being old is a state of mind and that everyone can go swimming, no matter their age. And for her future competitions, she has one simple goal.
To be able to do it.
Darius Mandavi is back with our BC-wide weather forecast as some people in Squamish, Pemberton, other parts of the province are watching the forecast very closely, sir.
Yes, and unfortunately, we had these two sort of atmospheric river events. The first one a little bit iffy, if you want to call it that, but the second one, a head-on hit. Now we have coming up just another one that's just about to hit. So a little bit of bad news in terms of the flooding situations that we're watching, because conditions might be improving right now, but things might take a turn for the worse in the next 72 hours. We'll get a better idea in the next 48 hours or so, but 72 hours for sure. Now, these are all the weather stations that we had. We've zoomed in quickly, but Pemberton sitting at around 90 millimeters of rain from Thursday into just yesterday over that 5-day period. And other places, the big one I want to point out is here just inland from Tofino and at a higher elevation, almost 800 millimeters of rain in just those 5 days. I have covered Tofino because it was showing an incorrect value. They were saying almost 800 millimeters as well. Not quite there because they apparently got 550 millimeters of rain in an hour, which is not quite true. Heavy rain, but not quite that heavy. And then we do have also here on the North Shore Mountains, almost 500 millimeters of rain recorded in those 5 days. So very heavy rainfall across the board. We are expecting to get quite a bit more now because of that atmospheric river. Not so much here in downtown Vancouver, but certainly at higher elevations on the North Shore and across much of the South Coast. Now in the days ahead, you're going to watch out for this water level as well. So this is the Lillooet River. We were going to take a look at this because we can see that the water level did jump incredibly quickly over the last 24 hours. It has peaked for today, but we're going to take keep a close eye on this over the next few days because we could see this increase again as we continue to see those really warm temperatures, those high freezing levels, and all that rainfall coming down and really causing all that snow melt, driving it down into the river. So this is the station just near Pemberton, but there are others as well that we are keeping an eye on. This is just the most significant, and it was taking a little bit longer to come down, but it is starting to now. So a little bit of good news, but again, we'll have to watch the forecast in the days ahead. Pemberton, just northeast of Whistler here, we're starting to see a little bit of transition from rain into mix and snow over the next few days as those freezing levels do slowly come down. but still got a ways to go before we see a return to seasonals, return to normal. Now, in terms of conditions across the province, again, we're seeing a little bit more snow in parts of the interior as temperatures come down, but not too much. South coast, plenty more rain on the way, and including here in Vancouver, really depends on your elevation how much rain you're going to get. Now, in terms of conditions, pretty calm across the province tomorrow, just really a very small chance of showers in many of these places. All that activity is up along the coast, and a pretty consistent forecast here in Vancouver, except we see that temperature really come down starting Friday night.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, they merge electronic music and folk into a unique sound all their own. And the Kootenays-based Moon Tricks are turning heads across the world. CBC's Vibe host Rohit Joseph caught up with the dynamic duo, Nathan Gurley and Sean Rodman, as they get set off to go on their biggest U.S. tour yet.
Hey guys, I'm Sean Rodman.
Hey guys, I'm Nathan Gurley.
I play the banjo, the guitar, do a lot of the singing.
I play harmonica, DJ, keyboards, and along with Sean, do a lot of production and Moon Tricks. I'm going home.
I want to know how you met. I wonder if one of you maybe has the first memory of that down pat. How did this melding of minds come together?
I think like the first time we actually met briefly was at Shambhala, weirdly enough. But it was more just like I was introduced to him. And then later on, I remember the moment when I found out he played music, as I saw him playing like guitar and singing at a small festival that we were all at, and yeah, I was just blown away.
You know, we were in the same circles there, and like I said, started jamming, playing, and Nate was always super eager and keen to pull out the harmonicas and do some playing, and we started playing more and more together, and at some point our paths kind of crossed indefinitely, and then and it was cool. Obviously we came from very different worlds in some aspects the same worlds, but it kind of created this cool balance together. I think that we both kind of complement each other's strengths.
When I go back out on the river,
so you go from like campfire jams to eventually producing music together. I mean, until I heard your guys' music, that's not something I'd heard much of before, if at all.
It was kind of like just a moment of like, well, what have we got to lose kind of thing, and let's just experiment with some things.
I think, the Kootenays in general, there was so many bush parties, like when we were growing up, and you'd head up a Forest Service road, and there'd be, huge set of speakers and full rave in the woods, and we'd all be together at these different events and things. So we were pretty like steeped in that culture. And then like I was mostly just producing folk music at the time, and so once we got together, it was kind of like, just total experimentation. Some of it we were like when Home came together, the first time we played it at a bar, we wondered, like, what are people going to think of this? It's like a bluegrass, huge beat, and with this huge harmony, and people liked it. And so, we kept going with that avenue. And it's awesome, honestly. It's very liberating. I feel like we can do no wrong with Moon Tricks. It's really...
we have full creative freedom right now. It's great.
we're not really cornered into like any kind of a genre. We get to surprise people, so it's fun.
What from what you're telling me, a lot you're getting all these people resonating in these what seems like two different scenes, but there's more connecting them together. And I think the thing that's really connecting folk music and electronic music fans as well is this appreciation for being in nature, which I know being in nature inspires both of you, considering the places you come from. Sean, do you want to speak on that a bit? I mean, how does being in nature, being inspired by it, how does that translate to sick beats?
I think, music comes from a place where you fill your cup, and when you really kind of are full of inspiration, you can sit down and pour it into your artwork. And I think for us, that's kind of the main place that we find inspiration or fill our cups, is getting out and out into the mountains, out on the water, whatever it might be. And it does translate through into the music. I mean, our songs, we've got like mountains and forest and currents and all these like title tracks that are,
not to mention like sounds of actual nature recordings in there that we've like took a field recorder and gone and recorded stuff out there.
Yeah, that's sick. Nate, can you tell me a bit about that process? Like, why bother doing that? You could just find sounds in some sound library, but why go to the effort of taking a field recorder and going, I guess, into your backyard trail to get those authentic sounds?
It's fun. That's the simple answer. It's really fun. It's super, like if you've ever worn a pair of headphones with a stereo recorder, it's really fun to listen to, and like it's a whole nother world that you're then just experiencing it through your ears. So you start hearing things that you're like, oh, we could use this that way. And
there's a really special thing about putting these little parts of your environment or parts of your life into the music, where like when you listen back, you can hear it. Like for instance, animals, like I ended up recording, my partner's a farrier, she does horseshoeing. And so animals, if you listen to it, there's like basically a bunch of horseshoes being clinked together and like forging sounds that ended up recording out in her shop. And it's just, little bits like that it's just kind of meaningful for us.
What is something that you'd really want people to understand about the Kootenays that maybe they didn't think about, like in terms of its artistic and cultural value?
I mean, I don't know. We're really lucky out here as far as like, there's so much support for the arts. Like, artists, like musicians can come through town and play to like sold out shows on weeknights. People will come out. So yeah, the support is huge. The environment is very conducive to writing and working. There's a music school that's in town. I took the music program at Selkirk, and it brings in a lot of music and art. So I mean, it's good food. There's just, it's good. It's got a good mix of everything.
I think just sort of like the unification, like I don't think that our music would have come about in the same way had we lived somewhere else. I think there is some amount of people are very susceptible to being open to, whatever, regardless of the genre or the style. And I think, that's something that it'd be nice if everywhere we could sort of just, it's all music and it's all good art and it's all fun.
Through the forest of my soul, I'm safe, man. Way, this road to hell is paved. Find my way.
A bagel is causing outrage in Montreal. Why some call it brilliant, others sacrilegious. The whole story is next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
This is Vancouver Island is the brand new podcast that explores stories of island life. Each week, host Catherine Marlowe looks at the joys and challenges of living on the island. Subscribe on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. And BC Today is the call-in show where British Columbians make their voices heard. And now you can watch it on television, stream it on CBC Gem, and hear it on CBC Radio 1 and CBC Listen.
A bagel shop in Montreal has teamed up with a cream cheese producer to create a bagel with no hole.
So is this progress, or as one local newspaper wondered, a sign of the apocalypse? Sarah Levitt takes a look at the debate.
Here in Montreal, we pride ourselves on our bagels. Usually the question is, which bagel is better, Saint-Viateur or Fairmount? But a new ad campaign from Philadelphia Cream Cheese has us asking, what actually is a bagel?
A very precise, good bagel will have a hole but also have a texture that's kind of chewy yet not really heavy, and it can't be bready.
Philadelphia Cream Cheese has teamed up with bagel shops in the United States, as well as here in Saint-Viateur, for this campaign that they're calling Philadelphia Bagel Holes. Now that's holes with a W. The idea being that you can put more cream cheese on it if there is no hole in the bagel.
There's no hole, it's not a bagel.
It's all in the taste.
And?
Excuse me, it rocks. No hole, but hey, I'll take a dozen of these to go.
It needs to have a hole. No hole, no bagel. For those interested, these bagels have to be made in separate batches because they do take longer to make. Saint-Viateur says after this 2-week campaign, they're not so sure they'll continue to offer them. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
I think somebody said it best. No hole, no bagel.
I wrote that down.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a what? What did you say?
It's just a bun. By definition, it has a hole.
We did look this up.
Yeah.
And it has a hole in it. So feel free to Google whatever you want and whatever flavor you want. It's going to be fun. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.